Hello, everybody. My name is Jacob Lemons, and welcome to another episode of LemonTalks. Now, one quick thing that I wanted to do is give you an update on the studio for LemonTalks. I am currently in the location that I intend to do it, but I do not have anything soundproofed yet, and I also don't have all of my equipment here. Like I said, this journey is going to be one that we take together, and this is the first step in that journey, which is to make another internet talk show here in Hutchinson, Kansas. Now, I posted yesterday that what topics we were going to be covering in today's episode. I will go ahead and tell you ahead of time that we will not cover anything on Xbox today, and it's just because I couldn't find anything major on Xbox. Then again, I didn't really look too hard either. And I'm just being honest with you when I say that Nintendo and Sony, those have been the types of consoles that I personally have owned throughout my lifetime, and so those are the consoles that piqued my interest, and so I didn't have to really do too much digging, but just a little bit of digging for y'all, so that way I could give you an update and keep you in the loop as to what's happening with that and within the gaming community. Something that I do want to make a standard on this show is that if we're going to bring up any kind of source with information, that we are going to cite the source of where it came from. Just trying to be a good student. And for example, we're going to start talking about the Nintendo Switch 2 now, and I wanted to tell you that this particular article that I grabbed all this information from, it seemed to grab it from multiple other sources as well, so I'm not going to cite all of those sources in particular, but I will cite the main article, so that way if anybody goes to check this information, then they can see where this information came from. And perhaps that's another point that I should touch on, is that I like to make sure that whenever I'm pulling from sources, that they are a source that cites their sources as well. It's just more encouraging. It makes it seem more credible. Let's just say that. So the source that I pulled from was an article by Enoba. That is the author of the article, and it was posted on soapcentral.com. There are a lot of cool new features to be expected with the Nintendo Switch 2. It has little mouse tracks on the Joy-Cons that come off of the console, so you'll be able to move them around, move your character, move your car, whatever they intend to use it for, even a mouse cursor around using the Joy-Cons. And so any sort of PC that you would have hooked up to make this easier in the last run with the Nintendo Switch, now you can actually use the Joy-Cons themselves. They'll be designed for that. And also, they'll put USB-C ports on both the top and the bottom of the Nintendo Switch itself. I know that speaking to some owners for the Nintendo Switch, that could get a bit frustrating from times, just because of the way that they had it set up. It was inconvenient to only have a USB-C port on one side of the actual console itself. On top of that, it's going to get a memory upgrade, it's going to get a hardware upgrade, so everything should be running faster, smoother, and be able to store more games on it. To the Nintendo Switch variety, they haven't said yet if they plan on releasing games that are specifically Nintendo Switch 2. For example, like within the PlayStation arena of things, you have PlayStation 5 exclusive games that aren't backwards compatible with the PlayStation 4. And so they haven't exactly clarified whether or not that's going to be the case, if there will just still continue to be Nintendo Switch games, or if the Nintendo Switch 2 will be backwards compatible with Nintendo Switch games. So we're still waiting to see the news on that, as to whether or not they're going to have Nintendo Switch 2 games, as opposed to just everything being Nintendo Switch. Moving on to the reaction to this, there are some fans that are not happy about the price, in particular with the Nintendo Switch 2. The price being $399.99, so $400 and some change is what it's going to cost you to get the Nintendo Switch 2 when it drops. Just to give you some insight as to the pricing, the Switch OLED is $349 currently now retail. The Switch OLED, the difference between it and the regular Switch, I feel like is important to note. It's got the OLED installments, so that way the screen has brighter resolution and a better frame rate with it. This is more recommended for people who intend to be professional gamers or game reviewers, basically people who tend to post the content of whatever they play online or for others to watch. The regular Switch, however, which is more for the laid-back players, the common player, the person who's just getting it for fun, it is $250 retail. The Nintendo Switch Lite is $200 after that. And now the difference between the Lite and the Switch OLED or the regular Switch is that the Nintendo Switch Lite was supposed to be a handheld only version of the Nintendo Switch. And so the other Switches, including the Switch 2, should have an HDMI port on it so that you can plug it into a larger monitor and cast your game up on there, just so that way you can get a better layout, a larger picture of the game, and it's just a lot more enjoyable for if you're going to be playing this thing in your home. But the Nintendo Switch Lite was for people who wanted it to be purely portable. Probably a lot of travelers get the Nintendo Switch Lite, would be my assumption. But I believe that some of these people may have overlooked some of the new functions with the Nintendo Switch 2, such as the mouse tracks, such as the new hardware, the new memory, the new ports that will be on it. I also believe that the way that the Joy-Cons click inside of it will be a lot more solid, a lot more handy, so that way they don't slide out on you as easily. However, there have been plenty of other fans that have responded to this negative outburst, I guess we could say, saying that this isn't just another cash grab, that it's okay to make new consoles more expensive as long as they have these upgrades. With Nintendo Switch 2, they've already shown that this console will have all of that. It will have new hardware. It has the reasons behind why it's a little bit more expensive than their most recent model. And so I guess you could say that the community right now doesn't really agree as to whether or not this is just a pitiful cash grab by Nintendo. I personally do not think it is. I think that the upgrades in hardware justify the new price of it. And if you don't think that the new hardware was worth it, then just stick back with the Nintendo Switch. Given that this upgrade is coming so soon, really, I do agree with everyone on that, is that it is a pretty quick upgrade to a new console. I don't want to make a for sure call, but I will speculate and I will guess that they're not going to make all the brand new games coming out specifically for Nintendo Switch 2. If there are Nintendo Switch 2 versions, like discs that come out for the Nintendo Switch 2, I guarantee you that at least for some time they will have a Nintendo Switch version along with it, like they did with the PS5 and PS4 for quite some time, that they had a lot of PS5 titles have a PS4 version of it. But I believe that if Nintendo wants to avoid any sort of backlash with that, that's something that they should look into doing. Now, onto the PlayStation 6 with a new leak. There is an update on the status of the PlayStation 6. The article that I am pulling from was written by Tyler Fisher at comicbook.com. The leak in particular on the PlayStation 6 comes from a man named Kepler_L2. He has been posting on places like Reddit that he's been working on hardware for the PlayStation 6. He is a hardware specialist, and so that's one reason that he was hired on as a designer for them. He says that the design is complete and that there could be a reveal as to the look and design of the console later this year. Now, this is all going to be educated speculation. And by that, what I mean is that Sony has not confirmed any of this. This is just stuff that we have put together as a community, I guess you could say, from the information that we put together. But some of this information is a bit conflicting, and we'll get to that later. But Right now, there is typically a 2-year period between the time that they do this reveal for consoles. So when they did it for the PlayStation 5, it came out 2 years later. When they did it for the PlayStation 4, it came out 2 years later. When they showed the design of the PlayStation 3, it came out 2 years later. And so if they do it for the PlayStation 6 this year at the end of 2025, it will come out 2 years later, which should be in 2027. Now, given that the PlayStation 5 came out in 2020, that would make the length of life in this particular console's generation 7 years long, which is about the same amount of time between the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. The PlayStation 4 came out in 2013, and then 7 years later, in 2020, we got to the birth of the PlayStation 5. And so, the timing adds up when you look at those two things in particular. However, with the recent launch of the PlayStation 5 Pro, there were suggestions that the PlayStation 6 is actually not coming out until 2028. Now, this is because the release time between the PlayStation 4 Pro, which was the last console before we saw the PlayStation 5, the last console update, was 4 years. And that means that the PlayStation 4 Pro came out in 2016 with the PlayStation 5 coming out in 2020. The PlayStation 5 Pro just came out last year in 2024. So giving a 4-year time period between the Pro and the next generation of consoles, that would actually lead people to suggest that the launch year for the PlayStation 6 is going to be in 2028, not 27. And so, in short, in summary, because of the leaks from Kepler_L2, we can speculate that the release for the PlayStation 6 is at least 2 to 3 years away. It will be within that time frame. And for a lot of Sony fans, I can tell you right now that people should be excited for this, just because it has been marketed as, and I'm going to say built up as, the biggest generational upgrade in history. So the technological upgrades from the PlayStation 1 to the PlayStation 2, not as big. From the PlayStation 2 to the PlayStation 3, nuh-uh. From the PlayStation 3 to the PlayStation 4, not even close. From the PlayStation 4 to the PlayStation 5, forget about it. The PlayStation 5 to the PlayStation 6 will be the biggest generational upgrade in console history. Now, I can't confirm whether or not Sony has said this themselves. They've just said that it is going to be a pretty substantial upgrade when they finally release it. But even them putting that kind of weight around it has led fans to think that this will be one of the biggest things that they have ever done. Now, in conclusion, we're going to talk about the release dates set for the Nintendo Switch 2, because these actually have official release dates. The release dates for them will all be for this year, but they release in a big city, and the big city, its local region, will also get the Nintendo Switch 2 when it releases in that city. And so for New York and the surrounding region, it will be April 4th through the 6th. And so after they release in New York and on the East Coast, they'll go to the West Coast, which I'm a little offended by. I mean, I live in the Midwest. Why can't you just go Midwest, then West? It's never mind. But in LA, they will release April 11th through the 13th, and surrounding locations there on the West Coast. I guess that maybe the way that I can guess, what leads me to guess that they're releasing in LA and New York first, is just for all the press, for all the promotion. Just because, those are two big media cities. But then finally, you have it coming to Dallas and Toronto in the Midwest of the central United States and up in Canada. And those release on the same dates, with April 25th through the 27th. And so, lucky New York, you'll be getting it at the beginning of April. and then LA will be getting it in the middle of April, and then everybody else will be getting it at the end of April. Now remember, this console is going to be about $400, so if you plan on picking yourself up a Nintendo Switch 2, first of all, I'm not a sponsor, but I would recommend it. It seems like a worthwhile upgrade if you enjoy not only the Nintendo Switch, but if you enjoy some computer-style games, because it seems as though Nintendo Switch has upgraded the Switch 2 and to be capable of such games, with the mouse tracks and whatnot. Now, that has been this episode of Lemon Talks. Just a quick little update on the status of the new Nintendo Switch 2 console, and also the potential release within the next few years of the PlayStation 6 console. I've spoken about it before with friends that I talked about starting this show with. It's just that I plan on covering an array of topics here. So I know that in the last one that we covered sports, in this one we covered some gaming. We haven't decided what the next topic is going to be. Whatever I look at that seems to be interesting the internet and interesting people, I will certainly bring that content to you. But for now, I hope you all have a great day, and thank you for watching.